In the brief 2 to 3 minutes that it takes to put in an application to the Barton Academy, one of the questions that applicants get asked is, what do you feel is the biggest barrier to you entering politics? And I've touched on this very briefly, but I haven't broken it down in the detail that I will today. One of the most popular answers is, I'm averse to going to large events. And to that, I say, preach it. I feel the exact same way. Now, I'm not going to play the role of a social coach. I am far too underqualified for that. But I do think there's just a little bit more going on to having aversion to large events than it is just pure introversion. Now, if you are introverted and think that that disqualifies you from politics, a lot of the greatest politicians of Australian history are introverted. So you've got your more quiet introverted types that are your more button pushers, but even some extremely charismatic politicians are by nature introverted, or were by nature introverted. This is true for Gough Whitlam. If you read his biography, the Troy Bramston one that is, his wife loved to be on the trail and loved socializing with people. Whitlam hated it. Whitlam would rather be at home reading a book and getting stuck into some policy. Yes, he was charismatic, but he did not enjoy large amounts of mingling. So being an introvert does not disqualify you from being a successful politician. But I do think there are a number of reasons as to why people hate going to large events. I think one of the biggest reasons why people hate going to large events is the fact that they having to brace themselves for lots of surface level conversation. We've all been there before. I really don't want to explain my job again. It's just so boring. I'd rather talk about anything but it. And so just the night of preparing yourself for 50 of those conversations is generally quite terrifying. The other factor as well is, how do you just get started in a conversation? Once I'm in a conversation, it's okay, but how do I just enter a room when I don't know people and just start talking to people? And I think that that is a very daunting part of politics that puts a lot of people off, just the ability to rock up and just start schmoozing. Thankfully, I don't think that is the pathway that you have to take, and I think there are numerous other routes to getting to where you want to go to in politics without having to go to those very tedious large events. So I'm going to put an antidote to surface level conversation. There is just a fact of general introversion, of the fact that, you know, it could be anything that you like doing. It could be going to, if you love soccer, going to a soccer game with 50,000 people. That's a big event, but you enjoy going to it. But just the presence of being around other people for a long period of time saps you of energy. That is true. But that is not an insurmountable barrier, as I mentioned with Gough Whitlam. And then I think the third factor is, I have no friends. Now, again, this isn't like a woe is me. It's more of a case of the Jaden Smith of, all your friends are just going, bro, and you just want to talk about the political and economic state of the world. But one of the easiest ways to overcome that is to make friends in the Labor Party and have friends that share your hobbies and share what you are not only interested in, but what you feel is your vocation to do with your life. And so when you kind of couple all of these things together, these are all barriers that can be overcome. You can be like Whitlam and overcome your introversion. You can find plenty of Labor Party events that don't involve tedious, repetitious conversation or repetitive conversation. And at the same time, it's very easy to make friends in the Labor Party, as people are already doing in the Barton Academy. So if you really don't want to be on the campaign trail, and that is just something that greatly puts you off politics entirely, well, there are still a number of other routes that can make you have an impact, and you can use your brain in the realm of politics that aren't being a member of the House. So A, being a staffer, behind the scenes work. B, being a senator, because senators they just need to be on the party ticket. And yes, there's a little bit of schmoozing to make sure you get on the party ticket. But Senate positions either reward factional loyalty or they reward policy expertise, or you can be a policy advisor. So there's 3 different routes there that allow you to be heavily involved with politics that don't require being a member for a local area, that requires you to yay, I'm going to go to the netball on Saturday morning to show my face there, because if I don't do that, my political opponents could make the most of that, and then a lot of netball mums will end up voting for them rather than me. There's just none of that involved in either of those 3 roles. So these are my solutions for, if you are a general introvert, how do you get involved with the Labor Party? But this would be equally as applicable to whatever other political persuasion that you have. Firstly, local branches are not that. They're not these big events that require lots of schmoozing and lots of, really tedious small talk. You rock up, 10 to 30 people that are there, depending on the size of your branch. The conversation is organized, it's focused, depending on how well the administrator is able to administer the meeting, but it's organized and it's focused, and there's a specific agenda in place that you can talk about. After the meeting, if you want to do any sort of small talk afterwards, it's off the back of having already spent significant time talking about a focused agenda, which will then make the next steps of conversation a lot more easy. It's so much easier than just rocking up to a party or rocking up to a large gathering and trying to find people to talk to, because often the most daunting thing is going, hey, can I interrupt your conversation? Please just save me from this social embarrassment of me standing by myself. I need to find someone to talk to. The second thing is to join a policy committee. So this can be an open forum in the party, it can be a specific policy committee, or you can join one of the advocacy groups. And the one that I frequently reference in the on Mystery M Labour is Labour for Housing, because that's the one I have a bit more exposure to with guys in the Barton Academy. But I have heard, a little birdie has told me that in one of the states, a Labour for History advocacy group is starting up, and I am throwing my full support behind that. So generally, whatever your policy area interest is, or even like in the case of history, whatever your sort of hobby area interest might be, there's opportunities to join advocacy groups where you can meet people that have the same hobbies that you do and get talking. And rather than having to talk about things that you find really tedious, you can actually just talk about your interest. Again, I say this time and time again, this is very true of dudes, but I suppose it's true of everyone. How much, like, you know, when you, I don't know, if you got a wife or a girlfriend or just any partner, and then you have to meet the spouse of their friend, and the first 5 minutes are just really awkward. You're trying to figure out what each other likes. But then if you find out you have the same hobby, it just becomes so much easier from there. That is certainly true for these advocacy groups. So that's a really easy pathway in that doesn't require you going to these really annoying events with no specific agenda and just trying to basically do very tedious small talk about what you do for a job. The next stage is to join a faction. Now, this sounds really sinister and ooh, faction. The truth is, it's actually really civilized in a lot of cases. We have people in the Barton Academy being like, hey, I want to join a faction. This is my state. Which do you reckon? And then some people have actually said, join the opposite faction to the one that they're in, because this seems to align with what your vision sort of is and what you want your next steps to be. It really isn't this like, ooh, they're fighting against each other and beating each other to death. For the most part, that is a symptom of a bygone era. But it does allow you to A, meet people that perhaps share some ideological overlap with you, B, agree with how you should be organized or just general guiding principles of how you feel politics should be. And then C, it's just a much smaller specified gathering, which makes it a lot easier to talk to people and to meet people. And you've got this general awareness that you're at least somewhat on the same page as you do it. And again, I say it's really civilized. People in the Barton Academy are saying, hey, this is not my faction, but if you join this faction, I think that will be the best steps for you. And obviously, we all unite together to get behind the party when we need to. So it's really not this sinister warfare thing. If you join a faction, you are not declaring war on the other side of the party. And if you don't join a faction, it's not a case that you're this great peacemaker that rises above the tribal warfare of the Labour Party. It's just a very helpful vehicle, because politics always gets atomized. Caucus is an atomization of parliament. Factions are an atomization of caucus. So really, factions are just a smaller version of what the democratic process already is. So it's an easy way to get to know people through more specified meetings. Obviously, joining a union and getting yourself involved in union politics is the alternative route into the Labour Party. And so that can either be as a delegate or possibly as a staffer. We have people who have both of those roles in the academy. In that situation, like obviously you are working within whatever your industry actually is. That makes it much easier to make friends, because when you're going to union-based events, yes, it is just this large gathering that might resemble a party or just resemble a general function, but it's within the confines of your industry, which makes obviously conversation a lot easier, because you coming in with at least some common ground with everyone that's there as well. And so your point of contact with the party is what your industry is and what your area of expertise is as well. Your next opportunities, if you want to go down the route of a staffer, I've said this before on the how to get your volunteer roles with your local MP, but you can volunteer for all sorts of roles. A lot of them actually aren't very extroverted. It can be sorting email. It can be organizing their newsletter. It really is. There's like a number of roles that are available that are very introvert friendly. And so that can be a very easy foot into the door to get started in politics without having to go to those really big, large social gatherings. The final thing is just if you want to join the Barton Academy, it's one of the easiest ways to make friends in Labour. People are using it all the time. You can see people are using it to coordinate meetups at conferences and also just meet up with each other as well. You can get to know someone, who knows, might even find love, but you can get to know someone quite well through all the different forums that we have in the Barton Academy. And then having made those friendships, you can actually meet up with them. And so those are the different steps that I would take if you are averse to going to large events but still want to get involved in politics. It really isn't a disqualifier at all. And we are so close to having those South Australian modules right up. So make sure you put your name down. Again, as I said, time and time again, putting an application in does not tie you down to anything. It just means you're the first contacted when new spots open up. And the way things are going, there are only going to be a handful of people left yet to contact when those new spots open up. So make sure you put yourself down on the list for that. Hi there. I'm Cam and I have a YouTube channel with over 5 million views on Australian political history. And at the end of 2025, I built a program that, as we speak, is helping people get chosen to be candidates for the Labor Party. Let me tell you how. For starters, it covers the entire Labor history of the major states. Each state has like 2 books available on their Labor history, but thankfully I could get my hands on them and make easy to digest modules so that my students have the ultimate perspective of the party they're in and why certain policies worked and others just didn't. You can quiz yourself at any point to check your understanding. But the Barton Academy is much more than just a lecture hall. It's a classroom with legends across all the states that are helping people get connected and meet other people in the Labor machine. Others are giving each other feedback on their motions, and some are even helping others get beers with sitting politicians. So couple a well-connected person with someone who has actual perspective on the history of their party and the challenges that they faced, and you get this. Since 1909, our parties have been divided over one battle line. The party that thinks that unions should have a role in making decisions, and a coalition of others who think that the unions simply don't belong at the governing table. If you want to grow in influence so that you can shape that very union party, I think that I might be able to help. Click this link right here to apply to join the Barton Academy. I'll get back to you pretty quickly.